So 1985, Marty McFly meets Doc Brown, or is friends with Doc Brown. Doc Brown makes this time machine. Marty McFly gets in the time machine in 1985 after terrorists come and shoot Doc Brown.
In the scary van, in the parking lot.
So Marty McFly travels back to 1955, where he then hooks up again with 1955 Doc Brown with a VHS player that Doc Brown has now watched intensely. He has watched the whole video that Marty took of this night in 1985. So he watches it. He's learning from it. He then sends Marty back to the future in 1985. But Marty goes, oh, wait, I want to make sure that Doc doesn't get murdered that night. So I'm going to go a few minutes beforehand. So then 1985 Marty McFly that went back to 1955 goes back to 1985, except a couple minutes earlier than he left the last time. So he sees the 1985 Marty McFly from several minutes before. Then he sees Doc Brown put Marty McFly into the time machine, where Marty McFly from 1985 travels back to 1955, whilst the 1955 Marty McFly went back to 1985. So technically, that present day 1985 Marty McFly went back to 1955. So there's still a Marty McFly in 1955 now that he came back to 1985. So the only logical explanation that the space-time continuum was not ripped by Doc Brown sending that Marty McFly from a couple minutes before Marty McFly 1985 back to 1985 is that he actually changed the time machine to a time that would destroy the time machine as well as Marty McFly, like the birth of the Earth.
Well, so listen,
Doc Fly's sick.
What you're talking about is actually something that's written about. It's called temporal paradox.
Okay.
So the limitations of time travel from a logistical standpoint or logical standpoint is if a time traveler goes back in time, they can't actually change the future. Because if you think about it, we're in a future state. So if you go back in time, everything that you do has to happen in accordance to reach the same ends.
Okay.
So
if I go back in time, it has no bearing on what my current timeline is,
unless you enter a new timeline altogether and there's like an alternate universe that you're visiting.
But if you go back in time, wouldn't you actually be creating a new timeline? Because then when you go back in time, everything branches off from that moment because future you didn't necessarily go back in time.
So that's the point I'm making. Logically, you can't change what's happening now by going back in time because the future is already predetermined if you believe in time travel at all.
Right, but Family Guy told me that as soon as you go back into time, you create a split and the space-time continuum's already been broken, so you're going off on this direction.
That's a completely different branch of theory. That goes into alternate universes now. So that's the reason why time travel creates this paradox. How can you change the future? You can't. You can only change the future in the present, but that's only if you believe that the future is undetermined. But right now, we know that the present moment is determined. So everything that happened in the past had to lead to this moment. Otherwise, you do tear the fabric of time, and we enter an alternate universe.
According to this theory, then, you could not travel forward into the future because there is no future. You can only travel backwards.
Correct. Unless
Biff was in the future too, Biff Jr.
But they vanished from the photographs.
Unless you believe
and he almost banged his mom.
The future is already predetermined. Now, if you believe in predetermination, you can visit the future.
Right.
So that makes
who directed Back to the Future?
I don't know. Ivan Reichman. I don't know.
Is there any chance that he just wanted to make a cool movie and that these conversations are kind of dumb?
Yeah.
The logical impossibility is that a time traveler cannot change the past from the way it is, only would be able to act in a way that's already consistent with what's necessarily going to happen. That is the temporal paradox.
Do you guys believe that time travel's already happened?
Probably.
Okay. The aliens, right? The UFOs that we see.
That it's just us in the future time traveling back?
Well, okay. Every drawing you see of the Greys, they have very long cylindrical fingers, right?
Yeah, like slender.
Yeah. So how are they building these ships? I mean, you could barely pick up a screw with those fingers. You would need human hands. So you'd have to come back in time. If they are us in the future after some nuclear holocaust, you'd have to travel backward in time and then harvest good DNA to then go create a human race army that could build things for you.
Interesting. So,
unless you're putting screws in with your mind.
So if you believe in the Greys, then yeah, that makes sense. Like there has to be a reason why humans aren't being attacked by these futuristic creatures who have way further
No, they're
advanced
just
technologies.
probed.
So they're just trying to either harvest us, for their good, or maybe potentially for their energy. Who knows?
Right,
It could be a Matrix
right.
situation. Here's the way I see it. Since we don't have confirmation of the Greys, but we have had all these weird visual sightings, I think it's actually things exist in a different spatial dimension. And when they poke into our world, we see objects that are floating in space, but it's
wow.
actually something
Wow.
entering our spatial dimension. So for example,
Okay. It's like a hand of God could
Yeah.
come through.
yes,
This is
Right.
hurting my brain. It's
When an
fragile.
ant- but this will help you
Wow.
understand it. When an ant crawls around, they live in a 2D space, right? So
Okay.
all they see is lines. If I poke my finger down, they're not going to be aware of a finger. All they're going to see is a flat circle, a disc, basically, because I'm entering their spatial dimension.
So are we ants?
So where are the ants? And somebody is poking their finger into our dimension. If they're a fourth dimensional creature, what we're seeing is a floating orb. We're seeing the tip of their finger.
Get your dirty tip of sausage finger away
Or-
from me, you
or
jerk.
A tip of something else.
Oh,
Who knows?
gosh.
Who knows? Who knows?
It's just a
who
colossus.
knows? I mean, it could, yeah, buddy, yeah, yes. Anyways, so good morning, Monologue
So
TV.
are
That
we,
was very
thank
good.
you. Are
Thank you for bringing
are
up Back to
teeny
the Future.
tiny, or is that thing Colossus?
What if the Earth is just a head?
I mean, it could, say that
Wait,
again?
What if the Earth is just a head
Are we
and
going
somebody's
back to
reached up
what-
to scratch his head, and the UFOs we see are somebody just trying to itch himself?
Or imagine this: the Earth is
Imagine
just some
that.
sort of like.
Did we take shrooms?
Yeah, actually, this coffee is a lot stronger than it was.
You guys ready
yesterday.
for my morning
Oh,
monologue?
yeah, sorry, yeah.
90 days, 16 hours, 33 minutes, 41 seconds. I can quantify the NFL, and I know that that's coming, and that's what I want. Speaking of the NFL, Prize Picks,